Beautiful day to be walking with God and to be in the light of the Lord. I'm your host, Pastor Jerone Davison. Welcome to Pastor Jerone TV. And I do want to finish covering this situation about the reason why the black church is failing. One of the reasons why it is failing is because, from my point of view, from my perspective, Revelation chapter 3, verse 20 is completing itself to where Jesus said, I'm outside of the church knocking at the door. And so if Jesus is outside of the church knocking at the door, well then who are the people in the church worshiping? And so many times we get to where we're worshiping the creature more than the creature. We're worshiping the pastors, and we're worshiping the praise and worship team, and we're worshiping the gospel music more than we're worshiping Christ. That's the reason why the church is failing, because the focus is no longer Christ. And then another reason, a major reason why the church is failing, is that its alignment now, it's fastly becoming an aligning itself with sin. You know, so if a brother or sister in the church falls, instead of calling it sin or condemning the action, we're not trying to cast anybody to hell who falls, because people fall. But we need to hold our leaders to a higher standard, because the Bible does in Timothy. So instead of calling it sin, they stand up and align themselves with sin, and they guard it and they protect it. So I remember when Brian Carn fell, and he's been falling a lot with women or whatever, men or whatever the case is. And when he came out and he was copying a witch word for word, well then some of these pastors took to Periscope and they became to his defense. They started defending the fact that this man was necromancing and talking with a witch and getting all the information from some witch and necromancer. And that's what I'm saying. The church is aligning itself with sin, and we need to stop that. That's why it's failing. And then another thing is that the church no longer really honors the word. You could show a Christian or a pastor the word of God, and it no longer means anything. I had a pastor tell me that he, forget all of that word. Forget about what Paul said. I'm a realist. I said, you're a realist? So the Bible isn't real? So have you ever been in a church where the pastor takes a text, let's say, for example, from Mark chapter 3, and they get up and they read Mark chapter 3, and your anticipation and your expectation is that they're about to break down Mark chapter 3. But they get up and read Mark chapter 3, and they take off into this emotional tangent and say a whole bunch of other stuff, 2 or 3 hours worth of everything else except for Mark chapter 3. And if you're a messenger from God, if God has sent you with a message, well then you should focus on the message instead of on what you feel and trying to get the people all excited and emotional. And most of the messages is about praise. But just think about it for a minute. When Jesus got into warfare with the devil in Luke chapter 4 and Matthew chapter 4, he didn't go into a praise fest. He didn't go into a praise party and do a praise dance in front of the devil. He said, it is written. And that's what the Christian's power is. The power is not in praise. The power is in the word of God. It is written. And the devil fled. And then the thing that I'm sad about, I have 4 beautiful daughters, and I just had one of my daughters get married. And what a proud moment. But the church no longer honors marriage, and it no longer promotes it, because we have so many lascivious leaders who'd rather be in bed with other people's wives instead of their own, or be in bed with some other man instead of being with their wife. Or we have a lot of pastors who are just single and refuse to get married and not even looking to remarry again, because there's so much play going on that marriage doesn't even matter. Now, the statistics are alarming that African American women are the least marrying women in the world. And I haven't heard any of this teaching or anything at Woman Thou Art Loose or any of these women's conferences around the world. And we have bishops and archbishops and super prophets and all kinds of stuff, and none of them are dealing with the real issue, is that our women need comfort. They need husbands. They need to be loved and need to be reassured and have a man in their life, somebody that's loving them and not cheating and beating on them. And it's crazy. So to be a man of God and not deal with the real problems is sad, So a husband and wife are given by God to help comfort each other. And when you going in and you're loving each other and you're being husband and wife, that's comfort. And so many people today have been taught and trained through our music and through our culture and even through our examples in the church to just cheat around. And that's not bringing comfort to your spouse. That's bringing discomfort. And then we have too many leaders who are failing and falling. Too many leaders making the same type of mistakes, and it's over and over and over again. Too many fails. My father, my dad, I've seen the effect of what falling leaders do. My father, he would come and hear me preach when I was somewhere near him. He'd come and hear me preach because he believed in me. He knew my life. But my dad would not go to church because he had seen pastors in the clubs with him. He's seen pastors, cheating around with women and stuff that he was cheating around with and being with. And he just wouldn't come to church. And my dad was a good man, but he just did not believe in the church because he saw too many falling pastors. And you don't know the great effect that it does to people when their spiritual leader falls. And people in the churches who, let's forgive him, God forgive him, everybody makes a mistake. But you don't know the collateral damage that's done when a pastor, a man of God or a woman of God makes a fall like that. The damage is really awesome, it's terrible, and it hurts a lot of people, and it leads souls to hell. My father died last year. I had to bury my father. I did his eulogy. And, I just prayed that he really came to know the Lord. But whenever I talked about church, he would always bring that up. And I know the damage that does when a leader falls. And then lastly, I'm going to just say this. Homosexuality is killing the church. It's devastating it. Now, the pastors don't openly agree with it, but when you go and sit down and you're sitting in the congregation, you look up there and you see the choir director and you see different leaders and people that are directing the choir and leading songs, and they got these suits on so tight they're about to pop, and they got the braids and earrings, and they got all kinds of colors on their wrist, and these men are very effeminate and all that kind of stuff. Well, then it's hard for a real man to not be distracted by that. And so as a pastor, if you're not checking these people and helping them and in the questionnaire you're asking them, are they participating in fornication or homosexuality and all this stuff, well then, hey, you can't do that because it's against the doctrine of the Bible and what we're presenting. Now, you can come and be a member, but you cannot be a worker in the church. I had 2 lesbians in one of my churches I had to kick out, and they were great. And I told them, I said, I'm not kicking you out the church. You're more than welcome to come and worship, but you're not going to be workers in the church. But they said, well, they rather leave the church. I said, well, help yourself. Church is a revolving door. I said, but I'm going to hold the standard of God up. All right, just leave your comments. Let me know what you think about this. And this is a major subject we really need to deal with. And I'd love to hear your comments. And thank you for your thoughts. Please subscribe and share. God bless.